All right, welcome everyone. And we're live streaming this because there's a number of people who couldn't be here that would have liked to have been here. And so we made this opportunity through live streaming. So would you all welcome those that are live streaming with us? Wonderful. All right, also we are passing around clipboards. And so if you have not signed up on the clipboard, make sure that you do. You're not committing to anything other than to get information. What I'm going to do, I'm going to put everybody's information on a master email list, and then I'll send information to you, as it comes. And then as people sign up by making deposits, then I will move you or add you to a new list, which is Isreal travelers. So that means you've committed and you're going and you put a deposit in. So then you'll be on that traveler list, and then I'll track with you also as we approach the actual going to Israel. How many people have been to Israel before? Wonderful. So it's a great opportunity to go again. How many people? So this is just going to be subjective. Okay, so I'm going to kind of ask, just kind of like what percentage of confidence are you that you're going? Okay, no, wait a minute. So I'm going to give different percentages, right? So, and this will help me. This will help me to be able to talk to the travel group, so they kind of have an idea, right? So, and there's still more people coming in, so I realize this is kind of a loose number here, right? But how many people are like 100% sure that you're going? Just raise your hand if you would. I'm going to keep your hands up so I can do a quick count of that. And obviously we're live streaming and they can't raise their hand that I see it. Okay, that's about 20. That's great. And then I have more also who have already told me that they're going, and they're not at this meeting today. Again, they're live streaming or somewhere else. That's all good. How many people are like 75% sure? In other words, you're not sure, but you're leaning in that direction. Okay, that's good. And so that's all very, very helpful. Obviously, there's a lot to understand when we think about this trip and what it means and all that sort of thing. So hopefully you've all got this brochure. It should say Israel and Jordan. And I apologize, I did not make enough of these. I have only left the Israel only, and here I'll explain the difference. Oh, you'll make copies. Okay, good. All right, Jordy will have those for you. So here's the thing. The reason why there's two is because there's an optional extension for those that want to. We're going to go on into Jordan, and we're going to go to Mount Nebo, etc., and then we're going to head south down to Petra. Petra is a city literally carved into the rock, and has tremendous, beautiful, number one, but it's great significance, and we'll make a connection biblically also as we go there, but it's an optional extension. So I want you to know that that's extra, obviously an extra fee, et cetera, et cetera. Also, let me be clear that this is a land tour. This is not a cruise. I say that because the last trip I took was a cruise, and of course, cruises are very popular, but this is strictly a land tour. And so many of you know kind of how we do this, cruise, and then land tour, and then cruise, and then land tour. So if you wanted the cruise, that's the next trip, okay, which is a couple years away. All right, so the land tour, the advantage of the land tour is that you get to see so much more of Israel. And that's the connection, of course, that we're going to make to the Bible, to the scriptures. And it's been well said that a trip to Israel is like a year in seminary, because it just brings the scriptures into the land in such a way that it okay, now I see, now I get it. And so many more things just make sense when you can connect and you've seen, and then you read the scriptures. Okay, so it would be very, very powerful. And we're going to have, all along the way, we're going to connect the Bible as we go. And so there's going to be many opportunities to hear the scriptures and short messages from those scriptures. Now, on this trip, I have the privilege of having a friend who is a pastor who's going to be joining us and helping me with some of the teaching. And so he's here today, and I'm going to ask Brian to come up in just a minute, but let me introduce him first. Brian's been a friend of mine for a number of years. He is a pastor at the Helvetia Community Church north of town here in the area of Helvetia, and it is just a very excellent church. He's a very excellent pastor and a great teacher, and I am so thrilled that he's going to be on this trip. And I think some folks from Helvetia Church are also going to be with us on this trip. And so he's going to help me by giving some of the biblical connections. So I'm going to ask Brian so you all can know who he is. Brian, would you all come up? Would you all welcome Brian as he comes? Brian Ostring. Brian, good to see
Rich.
you, man.
I appreciate Rich admiring my teaching, but I don't think I've seen him at church. Yeah, my name's Brian. It's good to meet all of you. I think I've met some of you before. I've been in the area about 17 years. Been a pastor all my adult life. Grew up in Northern California, and my wife's here with me as well. I went to Dallas Seminary. I enjoy teaching in the Bible and preaching out of the Bible. We have 3 adult children, 1 in college now, and the rest are married. Got a few grandkids, which is nice. Never been to Israel. I've been several other parts of the world as a chaplain in the military, and then, of course, visiting a lot of the folks that serve from our church in different parts of the world. But I'm looking forward to it. Rich was talking about it, and we were at a pastor's prayer thing or something via email, and we'd already been looking at some options, and so we're kind of excited about the opportunity to get to know you, and excited, I think, especially teaching out of the Bible for decades, being able to make some of those connections, which I think are really handy for you, but also for me as a teacher of God's Word for a long time, and hopefully a long time to come, and then for the folks in Helvetia as well. So, looking forward to getting to know you. Thanks.
Awesome.
Rich. Yeah.
That's Brian. All right, so let's kind of talk through a little bit about what we're going to do. But first, I thought I would kind of whet your appetite a little bit with a quick slideshow, if that's okay. And so we're going to go through this quickly, and this is not a complete summary of all the stops for sure, because we're going to do a lot of stops. But this is kind of a highlight reel, you might say, of a trip that we took recently. And so here we go. We're going to start with, the first one is the Sea of Galilee. And this is a scene we're actually on the sea in a boat and taking this picture. And actually it's a picture of Mount Arbel, that kind of outcropping of rock there. Mount Arbel is a place that Jesus would go when Jesus would go away by himself and pray. Many believe that Mount Arbel is one of the places, remote places that he would go and pray. And when you go to Mount Arbel, you can see the whole of the Sea of Galilee and all of the significant places. It's beautiful, and just being on the Sea of Galilee. By the way, we will take a boat ride. Okay, that's one of the most powerful parts of the experience, is actually be on the Sea of Galilee and ride on a wooden boat. It'll be much bigger, I will tell you, than the disciples were on, and because I was on the boat, and I said to one of the youth, isn't this amazing, And I said, can you imagine being in a storm, right? And he said something like, well, this isn't so bad. In other words, how can this isn't such a bad thing. I said, we're on a 100-foot boat. Can you imagine if you had 12 disciples and Jesus in a boat that would be from here to that wall? And then you try it. Now, when we go there, actually, at the northwestern part, they have actually found a boat from the 1st century that would have been very much like the boat that Jesus and the disciples would have taken, and it's beautifully preserved, and we're going to go into that museum. And then when you see that, you think, okay, now I can see why they would almost sink that boat. Anyway, so we'll go in the Sea of Galilee. We'll actually be on that boat. Next one is the Mount of Beatitudes. Of course, they've made it very nice now, and nice little pathways and gardens and such. But this is where, of course, Jesus gave that famous sermon on the Mount of Beatitudes, and we'll take the opportunity to hear some. It's very lengthy. We won't hear all of it, but some of that sermon that Jesus gave, and you can sit and overlook the Sea of Galilee, and that scene will just become very real to you. It's a beautiful, beautiful place. Next slide is one of those Beatitudes. And of course, we know that he gave many Beatitudes, but they've kind of highlighted these on the steps of the pathway as you go. It's very, very beautiful. Next one is actually the city of Capernaum. And we will go to Capernaum, north end of the Sea of Galilee, where Jesus spent so much of his time ministering there. And it is really quite amazing when you go to that place, because so much of the city is now being archaeologically preserved for us to be able to see. And in fact, the next one is a synagogue, a very large synagogue there in Capernaum that Jesus would very likely have taught in. And so this is a group. I was in this group this last November. I was also, February. I was also in Israel last November. Some of you were on that trip, I think, with us in November of last year. Next slide is actually what they believe could very well be St. Peter's residence. They can't 100% say that it's his residence, but they believe that very likely could be. And so they've actually kind of built a large church, which you're going to see. They build churches on or near many of these significant places. But you really get a sense of what their houses and the community would have been like. Next scene is the Jordan River. And when we go there, you will have the opportunity to be baptized in the Jordan if you want to. Okay, so both Brian and I will be there in the water baptizing. And so anyone and everyone, you might say, well, I was already baptized once. Is it okay to be baptized again? Yes, because we're being baptized in the Jordan, and there's a lot of significance to each of us to be baptized in that place, the same river where Jesus was baptized. Although it will not be the same location. We'll be up in the northern end of the Jordan River. Jesus was baptized down closer to the area around Jerusalem. If you go directly east from Jerusalem down to the Jordan, very likely that's where it would be. We're going to be up in the north, and there's a site that's been created. And in fact, interestingly, next slide, Chuck Smith, many of you know, of course, founder of Calvary Chapel, put a lot of money to create this baptism site. And so Isreal has kind of commemorated some of the great contributors to these things. And so they've planted an olive tree and made a commemoration for Pastor Chuck. Thought you might like to see that. Next scene is actually in Jerusalem. Now there's a lot of other scenes. This is just a quick highlight. But this is actually the Western Wall where we will go. And you will have an opportunity to pray there. It's famous, the Wailing Wall, some call it, but it's the Western Wall, and we will go there as a group. We will have an opportunity, if you want to pray there, if you want to fold up a prayer and put it in the crack of the wall, you're welcome to do that. The men and the women are separated, just so you're aware in advance. The women have their own area, the men have their own area, but we will have time to just be there. And you'll hear all the details about how that works. On the right-hand side, you'll see kind of a ramp. That actually is the access up to the Temple Mount, where the Dome of the Rock and the Al-Aqsa Mosque. So you see that golden dome in the background. That's actually from Islam, right? That's the Dome of the Rock, which is a shrine. And then there is a mosque also on the Temple Mount. It's to the right of that, or the southerly area, and it's the Al-Aqsa Mosque. And I don't remember which trip it was now, a few trips back, we had the opportunity to go up onto the Temple Mount. So whether we can or whether we cannot depends completely on security, and if there's any kind of tension, we can't go. Also on the time schedule, because it gets very, very busy. But anyway, so this is the Western Wall. We will definitely go there. Next scene are just some of the commemorations that they put in the areas as like a commemoration of Paul, for example, or the next one. Again, just kind of trying to rebuild some of the ancient architecture, and you kind of get some opportunities. You'll take a lot of pictures like this, and hopefully you will remember, how to put it all together. Next scene is from the Mount of Olives. So we're going to go up onto the Mount of Olives, and we will always do this in the morning. So Mount of Olives from the morning is the key because of the way that the sunlight will fall onto Jerusalem. And you'll see the golden dome, that's the Dome of the Rock. As you're looking out over then Jerusalem from this view, this would have been very similar. Of course, the Dome of the Rock wasn't there when Jesus was there, but this is the angle by which Jesus would see the Jerusalem. So it's quite a powerful scene when you get there. The next picture is the Garden of Gethsemane. Of course, these paths and stuff have been added, but we will walk down the Mount of Olives, and then at the base of the Mount of Olives is the Garden of Gethsemane, which is where Jesus and the disciples would go after Jesus would teach in the temple. They would go over to the Garden of Gethsemane. And Jesus, the night that he was betrayed, he was arrested in this place. And so it has tremendous significance. And so we'll have opportunity again to kind of just sit, kind of just take it all in, hear the scriptures, and just take a moment. We want to do this at several places where you just kind of take a moment and let it soak in. Mount of Olives is one of those places. We'll give a presentation, and then you can just kind of sit there and pray, take pictures, read what you want, and we'll move on from there, walking down. Okay, from the Garden of Gethsemane, then we'll go down to the Kidron Valley, walk up a bit to the next area. Now we're looking at Jerusalem. This is the famous Golden Gate. And this is the gate by which the prophecy says that the Messiah will enter into Jerusalem from the east. And so what's interesting is that many years ago, an Islamic leader, thinking to thwart the will of God, sealed up the entrance and put a cemetery in front of it, thinking that a man of God would not come through a cemetery. And so we'll see the biblical significance and the prophetic significance to these things that we're going to see with our own eyes. It's very powerful when you see the scriptures just come alive to you, especially prophetically. We want to connect prophetically to the scriptures and what we're looking at when we see it. Next slide. These are the tunnels, the Western Wall tunnels that they go alongside the Western Wall. And this is just a moving experience to go along these tunnels. And if you're claustrophobic, by the way, many of these are sufficiently large. If we are going to go into a tunnel that is going to cause you or could cause you problems, we'll tell you that in advance, and then you have the option to do something different. If you can experience it, if you can push through it, I encourage you to do that. But don't be ashamed to say, hey, I'm claustrophobic, I really don't want to do this tunnel, because there will be several of them. Not shown in here, we're going to go through Hezekiah's tunnel. Many of you know that Hezekiah dug a tunnel from the springs outside of the city, that it would come into the city, and then he sealed it over so that the Babylonian army, the Syrian army rather, could not have access to that water. And so we actually are going to walk through that tunnel, and it is wet, so plan on bringing some kind of shorts that you don't mind getting wet, some kind of sandals that you can walk in water, not on water, but in water. And we're going to walk through the tunnel, and it is quite narrow. So if you're claustrophobic, that would be one to avoid, I'd agree. And then also as a second option will be the what's called the Canaanite Tunnels. These are the tunnels, when David overtook the city, his men came through these tunnels and then entered and overtook the city. So that will be an option for those that are a little more claustrophobic, although it's still a tunnel. Next one, more scenes from the Western Wall. You're actually in the tunnel, and the Western Wall of the temple is to the right. And so this is an excavation called the Western Wall Tunnels. Okay, next. And this is now, when the temple was destroyed, you're going to see the temple was thrown off of the Temple Mount and just a pile of rubble. And so you're going to kind of see it's not all been put back. And you kind of see the condition of things when it was destroyed. Some of them are still remaining there. And it's quite a scene because you can see history unfolding before your eyes in some of these scenes. The next scene is the menorah. And we will go through the Temple Institute and they make a special presentation because there is an organization that is preparing for the rebuilding of the temple. And they have created all the implements necessary to initiate again an active, real temple. And so we're going to go through that also, and this is the menorah that they've created and a lot of security around this, as you can imagine, because it's gold. It's like real gold. Next one is the City of David. So we're going to go, they have excavated the City of David remarkably. And so that is one of the places that we're going to go to. And in fact, the next slide shows what they believe could well have been the residence of David, or at least from that time period. And interestingly, from there, we are going to go through a tunnel which is known as the sewer tunnel. And this is definitely tight. So if you have claustrophobia, we will give you a different route. But if you can do it, it's quite a thing, because the blood of the sacrifices had to be drained. And it would be drained through the sewer tunnels. So we're going to actually go through the tunnels, and it will lead you then out to the Western Wall. And if you can do it, it's going to be quite a moving experience also. Next scene is En-Gedi. And this has biblical significance because David, when he was fleeing from Saul, would go to En-Gedi, and it's in the desert near to the Dead Sea. So when we head to the Dead Sea, we'll stop at En-Gedi and read some of the accounts of David's encounters with Saul, running from Saul, and the significance of En-Gedi is very, very important. And once you get there, all of a sudden, so many things from David's period will make sense to you, particularly that aspect of his conflicts with Saul. That's very beautiful, very moving. Next scene is like some of the caves, kind of a picture, that David hid out in caves as he was hiding from Saul. And so it begins to come alive. Very likely not this one, very likely much bigger one. But this is you can just imagine then David and his men hiding out in some of these caves. Next is we're going to go to Masada. And Masada has a lot of interest to us because of Israel's history. So not only are we going to look at biblical history, we will also continue forward in Israel's history. Masada, built by Herod the Great, who is biblically connected, is a really amazing archaeological wonder, and we're going to give you a lot of details and information about it, and I think you will be very, very impressed. Now, it is hot, and so we'll give you lots of warning about water and shade and umbrellas, and we'll prepare you, but you got to do it. And we will take the tram, by the way, it's up quite high. We will take the tram up there. We will not let you walk, just so you know. Just because the reason is not because we don't believe you can't do it, but it will take you forever, and we want to keep moving. And so we are going to go to Masada, and it's going to be, the next picture is further pictures of Masada. And the next one is looking from the top of Masada down to where the Roman camps were, in the sense that they built this ramp. And we'll give you the history of this, but they built this ramp up to take Masada. Once the Romans broke through, finally they broke through into Masada, they discovered that the Jews that remained had all killed themselves. And so for many years, the Israeli Defense Forces would swear in their new recruits on Masada. Then they changed their mind and they no longer do that. But it's quite a moving scene when you go there. Next slide is actually the Dead Sea. We will go to the Dead Sea and give you an opportunity to swim there if you wish. So, bring bathing, suitable bathing gear for that, appropriate, of course. And there will be opportunities, if you want to buy like some in the mud. They say it has great properties for your skin and things like that, although on one of the trips, I don't remember which one, but on one of these trips, we spent a night at the Dead Sea and gave everybody kind of a break, because it's very intense, right? Gave everybody a break, and okay, this is just kind of a relaxing day, so swim if you want, hang out. These hotels offer various services, different massages or face treatments or whatever. So my wife thought, oh, well, here I am in Israel, I'll do one of those mud wraps. And so I want nothing to do with this, but she's like, okay, she wants to do it. So she goes and I forgot the name of the massage person. What's her name? Hildegard. Now, if you're going to get a massage, I suggest you don't get a massage from a person named Hildegard, right? And so they do this torturous massage, and then they do the mud, and then they do the mud wrap, right? And then Hildegard left. Meanwhile, so Jordy, she's like wrapped up in this thing, and the salty mud starts to make her skin itch really, really badly. And Hildegard wasn't there. So she's like dying in this wrap, like, get this off of me, And so finally Hildegard came and wrapped, and she took the shower and got all the mud off of her. And she came back and explained all of this thing to me and how much, she suffered under Hildegard and the wrap and everything. And I said, and we paid for this? Okay, I shouldn't have said all that. But anyway, you can do that. I don't know that we're going to have time. I don't think we're going to have time to like stay a day in the Dead Sea and actually take a day break. I don't think we're going to have time for that because the schedule is very, very intense. But we will take an opportunity to swim there, just so you can say you did it. Okay. Next picture, this is actually down in Gaza, and I just put this in for your interest. We won't actually go to Gaza. It's been very tense there, as you might know. And in the Gaza Strip area, Hamas is sending over rockets pretty regularly. But what this is actually a play structure at the park. And when the sirens go off, the children are instructed to run in. There's actually entrances into these play structures. And they've built these to withstand bombing. And so it's very interesting how they've built them. And so they're concrete shelters with steel encasement, so that if a bomb does come, the steel prevents the concrete even from destroying or hurting the children. So they've had to come up with ingenious ways of protecting themselves in Sderot, which is right next to Gaza. I just put this in for your interest. The next slide also is interesting because this is a collection of rockets, spent rockets that have been sent over into Sderot in southwestern Israel. And I just thought this is only a small fraction of the number of rockets that have been sent into Israel. So, by the way, while we're there, we are going to have the opportunity to learn, right? This is an educational opportunity, right? We're going to learn a lot about Israel. We're going to learn a lot about the history and the biblical connection. And we're going to learn about some of the modern history I think it's very important that we learn about the modern history of Israel so that we can understand the events that are happening in the Middle East. And so when we're there, it's going to make a lot more sense as we connect these dots. Now, on my last trip there, we actually went up all the way to the north border and had the opportunity to actually see Hezbollah. I don't think you have an interest in getting that close probably to Hezbollah. But for me, it's fascinating to understand how we got to the present condition of things in the Middle East. So we want to give you some of that history and some of that background that leads to the modern world in which we're living, and then connect it prophetically into where this is leading us in the fulfillment of biblical prophecy. So all of that will be part of what we do. A lot of education. You'll feel in many ways kind of overwhelmed. And so bring your cameras and record as much as you can, because you'll want to review those later and let them soak in more. And of course, today with modern cameras and great memory things, you'll be able to record quite a bit. And by the way, that reminds me of another thing we're going to do, and that is that we're going to set up an app by which you'll all download this app, and everybody on the trip, and then it will outline for you every stop that we have planned and kind of an outline of what we're going to do at that stop. And then you will have an opportunity to upload your pictures and videos and stuff to this. It's all on the cloud. And then everybody else in the group will be able to see your pictures, and you can see theirs. So this will be how we're all going to share our pictures and how we're all going to share our videos. Okay, and so that app is called Explorative, but don't worry about it now. I'll get you all set up. For those that actually commit, put down a deposit, and are committed to going, don't worry, I'll get you all set up. Okay, we got plenty of time for all of that. Okay, so then the next scene is Golgotha. And this is the place of the skull. And you can't really make it out very well in this picture. But when the sun shines on this hill in the late afternoon, a skull, because of the way the shade hits that hill, a skull just becomes very, very apparently seen on the hill itself. And so this is the place of the skull. And there is then the garden tomb. And in fact, let's go to the next slide. The garden tomb we will go to right next to it. It says, in that place there was a garden. And in that garden there was a tomb. And so we'll go there. In fact, the next slide is a picture of that tomb in that garden next to the place of the skull. And so is this the exact tomb that Jesus was buried in? It very likely could be. I cannot 100% say that it is. But there is the place of the skull, there is a garden, and there is a tomb. So it very likely could be. And it's a very moving thing. And of course, right next to it is the sign, he is not here, for he is risen. And we will go there, and you'll all have an opportunity to go into that tomb, take pictures, and each of us will you'll have your own turn in there. And you can spend a few moments taking pictures and just kind of soaking it in. And then we'll also be able to all gather together. We'll have some worship. We'll take communion. We're going to take communion at the garden tomb. And it is so moving, so powerful. It's a lifetime experience. And I'm excited that many of you that go are going to have that opportunity. Okay, now that's just a taste, just a flavor. There's many, many, many more stops, many more pictures, just giving you a little sampling of it. Let's go now to the brochure. Now, those who are live streaming, obviously you don't have this. By the way, let me catch up because I think some people came in late. Did everybody give me your information on the clipboards? Raise your hand if you did not give me your information on the clipboards. Okay, could somebody pass those around? There we are. Everybody else, I need your information. I'm going to put you on an email group list, and you will be kept informed as information comes. Anybody else? Okay, does everybody have a brochure? It should say Israel and Jordan. So it is the full Israel trip and then at the very end of it, there's an extra description of the optional extension to Jordan. So let me be very clear. The base price, and Jordy, more over here on this side over here. The base price is for the land tour. If you want to go to Jordan, which is an extra 3 days, then that's an additional price. Okay, so that's an optional option. That's an option. You can choose that. Okay. So here's the brochure. Now, those that are live streaming, you're hearing me say this to you. So I'm going to now talk to the live streaming people, okay? Bear with me. So all of you that are live streaming, I have asked everybody in this room to give me their information. That is their name and their cell phone number and their email address. So all of you live streamers, please email me that information, and I will add you to that list, okay? So my email address is very simple. It's rich, R-I-C-H, at calvaryhillsboro.org. I'm going to do it again. Rich, R-I-C-H, at calvaryhillsboro.org. And if you didn't catch that, my email address is on our website also. But send me an email, please, all you live streamers, your name, your phone number, and your email so I can add you to the list. And I will send this to everybody as an attachment. Okay, so you're going to get it as an attachment also. So all of you live streamers, when you send me your information, I'll add you to the group and you'll get it. Okay, now that being said, you'll notice on here that there's no price. And that's because I thought that they were going to have a price to me by now. They've informed me that the airlines has not released their portion, and therefore, obviously, we cannot set a price. The Isreal portion itself, I believe, should be less than $4,000 or less. I don't know how much less. A lot depends on the airlines and what they say. The extension, I don't have a price on that either. It should be less than $1,000 for sure. So again, I apologize. I will send all of that information as soon as I get it to the group. So that's why I have to have your information or you won't get that knowledge, okay? So here's how then you would process. Once I give you those prices, which probably won't be till the end of October, they're saying now, because typically in the past, they've given me prices 1 year prior, but now they're saying it's 11 months from the return. So they won't give me prices until the end of October. But I will get those to you as soon as I get them, okay? So once you get the prices, then you decide that you want to go, let's say. Then your next step is going to fill out the form that I'm going to send you and make a deposit. Okay, I don't know what deposit they're going to tell me. You're going to make that deposit into your account, and that's going to reserve your spot. Now, if you want to make payments, they're going to set it up so that you can make payments if you wish. Okay, and that's one of the reasons why we give you this information a year in advance, so you can begin to save and make payments if you wish. Okay, and now also, you might consider, I would strongly encourage you to consider buying travel insurance. Okay, now travel insurance is insurance coverage should anything happen, such as you get sick, for example, and can't make the trip. Then they would pay you for your money that you put into that. One of these we did, I think it was, I forget what year it was, maybe 10, 11 years ago. We were booked to fly into Philadelphia and then beyond. And then the Hurricane Sandy, 2012, thanks. Hurricane Sandy came in and we couldn't fly through Philadelphia. And many of the people in Israel couldn't come out, and we couldn't go. So we actually had to cancel the whole trip. But everybody had insurance. We were all good. We just booked it the next year. It was all good. So I do encourage you. You don't have to. It's completely optional. So if you're comfortable taking that risk, then that's on you. I mean, I totally let you decide that yourself. Okay? And this brochure that I've laid out for you is our itinerary as it sits today. So remember that this is not written in stone, it's written on paper, and it's flexible. Okay, so we do flex as we go. Some of it depends If we hear, for example, that there's a whole bunch of buses at such and such a place, then we go to another place. But this is a pretty good guide of what we're going to try to accomplish and the pace. Now you're going to realize, I think, through this that it's a very fast pace. And there's a lot that we accomplish. And I'm of the mind that you are going there for the experience of it, and you can rest, when you get back. So our typical day will be, we get up, of course, and have breakfast. I'll give you a certain time to be on the bus. And I will tell you in advance whether or not you need to bring your suitcases, because we'll be moving cities once in a while. We'll start out in Tel Aviv. We'll go to the Sea of Galilee area, stay there a number of days, and then we're going to move down to Jerusalem. So I will tell you if you need to bring your luggage with you. But I'll give you a particular time to be on the bus. And so one of the great keys is to be on the bus at the time that I say. Okay, so this is really, really important. This is what makes it really work. Okay, so if I say, for example, be on the bus at 9, that means be in your seat and accounted for by 9. See, it's not like church. It's different than that. When we say 9, that means be counted by 9. Okay, that's really, really important. Otherwise, it slows us all down. And we have a very, very big itinerary. Now, here's another thing we're going to do. We're going to be in groups. Okay, so the groups will be of various sizes. I don't know yet what size. It'll be probably in the area of 6 to 8 people. Probably 6, but we'll see. Maybe 6 or 8 people in each group. And the group A, group B, group C. And you are responsible to keep track of your group. Okay, so if we're moving through an airport, for example, then you keep track of your group. If we are at the Western Wall, where there's a big crowd of people, and we don't want to lose you in the crowd, you are accountable for your group, okay? So that when we gather back together again, instead of doing a roll call, I will do a group roll call. Okay, so when I say group A, then you will have already checked to make sure that everybody from group A is here. And then you say, here. I want to make sure I'm very clear on that, because sometimes I'll say group A, and then somebody from group A will say, oh, I'm here. Well, that's not what I want. I want to know that the entire group A is here. You with me? So you are responsible to make sure that you keep track of your group. So if you have favorites, you have already friends, I should say, that you want to be connected to, then you'll have an opportunity to self-assign groups. Okay, but please don't take it personally if you didn't get invited into a group. Okay, you will be in a group. Everybody will be in a group, and you will be family. Because there's an old saying when it comes to traveling to Israel: you leave as friends, but you come back as family. Because you will be so connected, there'll be so much experience that you share together, and it really will be just a joy to be traveling together. Now, we're expecting a pretty good-sized group. The bus probably will be likely full or near full. And so that'll take some patience, right, to process a number of people, whether it be lunch or entering through a site. So remember, you're traveling in a pretty large group, and we have patience with one another. And for example, when we get on the bus, just be gracious. We will all get on the bus. Just be patient. And we'll all get on nice seats, and we'll all be good. You see what I'm saying? When we're traveling as a group, patience is the key. Okay, now also just another mention. The price that I'm going to give you is going to be based on double occupancy. So the assumption is that you're going to share a room. Now, if you are traveling single and you no, I don't do double occupancy. I travel single. That's fine. There is a supplement for that. There's a little additional cost, which I will explain to you when I send the email out. Okay? But if you are traveling single and you don't mind sharing, then I will personally go through and pair you up and kind of offer different options for different ways you might travel together. And if you're going to be rooming with someone, you will also be in the same group with them. Okay, so those are all details of how we keep organized. Now let's kind of talk through a bit of the food and all of that, how that works. So we will be staying at these hotels, very nice. They're typically 4-star hotels. And you'll have a buffet breakfast. So it is just like that. It is a big spread. And then you will come back in the evening and you'll have a buffet dinner, big spread. So you're welcome to eat as much or as little as you want. Lunches are not covered in your pricing. So make sure you bring some extra money for lunches. You're more than welcome, if you wish, to bring some snack items with you. You know, you might want to bring, if you prefer that, you're welcome to. If you want to bring a bag of trail mix and a couple of, protein bars or whatever, you can do that if you want to save that money. Totally optional. But we will have different places where we stop and you can buy lunch, at such and such a place. And they're usually around $10 or so, $10, $12 for lunch. So just plan on that. However, there is like 1 or 2 lunches or so that are included, and we will let you know. Like, for example, when we go to Sea of Galilee, we do the famous St. Peter's lunch. And that's where we sit down and have a fish. Now, I will tell you, if you don't like fish, you can have chicken. But it is quite an experience to sit down and have a whole fish, eyes and everything, staring at you. There's just something to experience. But if you want chicken, you can do that. Anyway, that's included. So that's how you handle your lunch, your dinner, and your breakfast. Okay. Now let's kind of talk about your passports and all that sort of thing. You have to have a passport that is expiring at least 6 months beyond the trip. Okay, so we'll be traveling in September, and so your passport has to expire at least 6 months beyond October, which is about when we'll get back. Okay, does that make sense? Israel will not require you to have a visa. You don't have to have a visa. And they won't stamp your passport. Okay, they've learned that that creates negative reactions when you travel to other countries and they see you into Israel. So they don't stamp your passport. They will give you a stamp, you might say, on a piece of paper. Make sure you keep that piece of paper, because that's how you get out of the country. I would very much like to bring you home if I brought you over there. Okay, so now let's talk about shots and things like that. You don't have to worry about shots, okay? If you're up to date here, you're up to date there. It's all good, no worries. You don't have to, there's not like a mosquito problem or anything like that. You can drink the water. It's very much like here in America. Okay, now security, you're probably concerned about security. I tell you, I have never seen so many weapons as I've seen in Israel. But also, you are very secure because there's a lot of weapons in Israel. And the police are really military, you might say. And they stand around in groups, and they have heavy machinery. So you will be safe. If anything happens, they react very, very quickly. And if you've been following the news, you know that these days, very little happens there because they've done so much to increase their security. And when we're there, we will see the new, well, it's not new now, but the border wall / fence, high security. And this was something that was put in. We actually had the opportunity to talk with the Israeli Defense Forces colonel that designed and built that wall. And I would be happy to play that video for you of that presentation if you would like to see it. And hopefully we can do that while we're there for those that would like some additional information. Another thing we're going to play for you at some point on the way is a gentleman that we heard on our last trip who was an Arab Palestinian Muslim who's a supporter of Israel and who gave tremendous insight into the dynamics of what is actually behind much of the conflict there. And I'd like to play that for you. These are all optional things that we will do in the evenings. Okay, so anyway, our day typically will start, you'll have breakfast, I'll give you a time to be on the bus, we'll start our excursions for the day, stop at various places. We'll take advantage, when possible, while driving from one place to another place, to kind of give a briefing of what we're doing, where we're going, its connection. But we will also have times of devotions, you might say, where we go to a place and just have the Bible speak to us. Whether it's Pastor Brian or myself, a pastor will give a devotional at various different places, just connecting the Bible to what we're doing. We'll travel around, we'll stop and find a place to have lunch. You can stay on the bus if you want and eat there, or you can sit at the table and eat your snacks, buy a Coke or whatever, or buy a falafel or whatever you want. We'll get back on the bus at a particular time, and we'll do the afternoon. We'll come back at dinner time, and then you're on your own, typically. Every once in a while, we'll have an evening meeting, but typically, we like to have your evenings free so you can rest, recuperate, catch up on your emails, whatever you want to do, and go to bed. That'll be your typical day. And then, of course, when we get to the end of our Isreal portion, then those that are going back, we will make arrangements for you to get to the airport and off you head back. Those that are staying for Jordan, we will get on a bus, go over the Allenby Bridge, and head into Jordan, and off we go. And so those going into Jordan, I believe we will need a visa, and I'll make arrangements for those for you in advance. Okay, now let me go ahead and open it up for questions. Now those that are live streaming, obviously, you can't ask me a question. So I'm going to open up my phone right now. And actually, I can do it right here on my tablet. And I'm going to open up my email. And those that are live streaming, you are more than welcome, if you wish, to email me. And I'm going to watch my email. Should you send me one, I can answer it right here. How's that for technology? Okay, but right now we're going to open up to the room. Any questions? Any and all questions are fair. Go ahead, Rick. Oh, what travel agency? So I'm making arrangements with Frosh, which is a Jewish travel agency. This is the group I traveled with last time, and I thought they did a very excellent job. They have great connections to El Al. We'll be flying El Al Airlines. So the price that I'm going to give you is out of Portland. So it'll take you from Portland to LA, and then from LA we'll fly direct to Tel Aviv. We're not going to Europe. That's kind of the plan. Now, some of you, and live streaming people need to hear this too. Some of you will be joining us from other places. Like, for example, there are some that will be joining us in LA. So we will help customize your price according to where you're coming from. So be aware. Tell me your individual needs, and I will help you individually. Okay. For example, there's a group that's coming out of Amsterdam. So they're making their own arrangements for travel, and they will be given a discounted price. The airline fee will be taken out of their ticket price. By the way, if you have frequent flyer miles that you want to use, and you want a discount for that, then that's fine too. You can make your own travel arrangements that way, and the price of the airline ticket will be removed out of your price. Does that make sense? Okay. Good question. Right back there. Go ahead. Indonesian passport? That's a good question. I'll have to check on that. Send me that as an email, and I will find out and give you the answer. Okay, then I just got a text from someone live streaming that says I did not give the dates to those live streaming. That's because all of you have this for sure. So the dates are September 16th, and let me get off the screen just for a minute. So the Israel-only portion is going to be September 16th through 25. The extension will be 25, 26, and 27. So it'll be a 3-day extension for those going to Jordan. So those are the dates that I have right now. Should that change, I will let you know. So the sooner that I can get space on that plane, the better it is, because it's a big group. But I think we should be fine. I think those dates will work. Go ahead. Good question. His question was, in the evenings, which are set aside for R&R, will there be time in the evenings if you want to go for a walk or something like this? I think that was your question, right? So, yes, if you want to do that, you're more than welcome to go for a walk. Please don't go alone, because I want to have some track of where you are. Make sure you tell somebody if you go for a walk. And make sure you have a cell phone with you just so we can connect up with you. And I'll give you some ideas of places that you might want to go to. One of the joys I find in going to Israel is buying some spices that are there. I like to cook, and I like to cook with some Mediterranean spices. And I'll give you some of my places to go. And there's an Arab market, but it's very crowded, and they like to barter with you and stuff like that. I found a Jewish market that I just enjoy. I love their spices, and I'll give you all that information. And then there's a shopping, there's a street that's kind of popular for shopping. I'll give you directions and give you time to go there as well. Let me take an email question, if I can do that. He says, will we be able to go to Yad Vashem? This is the World War II Holocaust Memorial. And yes, I would like us to go to Yad Vashem. I think it's very moving. I think it's very important because of the history of Israel, and their suffering is part of their history. And I would like us to go to Yad Vashem. It takes some time to go through it, to experience it, but I think it's well worth it. So yes, we are going to, and I hope it's in there. I think it is. If not, it will be, because I want us to go to Yad Vashem. Good question. Thank you for the email. Okay, next. Oh, good question. His question was, do we shop or buy things in dollars, or do we need to exchange them for shekels? Typically, they will use dollars, so you can do either one. If you want to transfer some over to shekels, you can do that too. But they will typically take dollars, especially if you're bartering. Dollars are fine. You can bring your Visa. I would suggest you bring just one. And many places take Visa, and your Visa company will do an automatic exchange. So that's a great, easy way to do some shopping. And we'll go to shops. We're going to give you time to shop. That's one of the questions that a lot of times people ask is, will I have time? You will have some time. We don't generally give you a lot of time. So what we might do, for example, is give you an extended lunch. So, for example, let's imagine that lunch is at 12. We might say, okay, you've got till 1:30. That gives you time to eat a quick lunch and do a little shopping. And typically, if we're going to do that, we're going to be in an area where you can do some shopping. And then we'll say, okay, 1:30, meet us by the, right here. There's a statue of a lion, for example. Meet us by the lion at 1:30. Now, let me just reiterate. When we say meet us by the lion at 1:30, what does that actually mean? That means that you've checked in with your group and by 1:30. So you need to be there early enough that you've already seen, is everybody from group A here? Yeah, we're all here, we're good. And then at 1:30, that's when I'll say, okay, group A, and then all here. Group B, all here. And then that way, and then if someone says, well, no, we're missing someone from group C. Okay, who are we missing from group C? Does anybody know anything about so-and-so? Who's got their number? His number. And we start like, who saw him last? Where is, and then we're going to go until we get you. Okay, so we have not left anybody behind, and we won't. Okay, we're going to stay there because we were not going to leave you. But don't do that. Okay. Oh, thank you. Good question. Her question was, what should we expect weather-wise? It will change a little bit as we kind of go up and down the north and the south, but it will be on the warmer side. So let me just tell you why we're picking these dates. I don't normally go in September because it's a little warmer than I like. But in 2019, the Jewish festivals are such, when they land in October, they make it very difficult to travel because of the number of Jews that are actually traveling in October. So in working with them, they felt that it would be better for us if we could do a September date and avoid the Jewish holidays. That's why we picked this date. Now, the negative side is it's a little warmer when we go this early. So plan for that. We will hydrate. I'll say that many, many times to make sure that you're hydrated, because the last thing I need is for somebody to have low blood pressure and need a hospital visit. Now, the bus will have water. One of the little side businesses that we'll see is that the driver, who's got a little refrigeration unit on the bus, will keep that supplied with water, and typically it's $1. So when you get on the bus, you just pick up a water, give him $1, and continue on. But drink a lot of water, especially, if we're out at Masada or whatever. It's hot. Masada is hot. Make sure if you want to bring an umbrella that day, you're welcome to bring an umbrella. Because I want you to have no problems. Now, another question has to do with walking. And that is, how much walking should be expected. So this is a land tour, and there will be some walking. And if it's going to be difficult, I'll give you that in advance. So you can, I'll try to give you options. So I can hopefully give you a lighter one or a heavier one. But typically, if you can do it, try to stay with us. Of course, I will tell you in advance if we're going to do a tunnel or whatever. You can have an option there. But we try to keep the walking, to a reasonable amount of time, but there is some walking. So I want to kind of tell you that in advance. There is some walking. And so you might go out and start, before we go, kind of start taking some walks to kind of build up your stamina and that sort of thing. But plan for that. There will be some walking. Now, one of the things that also we will do is we'll have a radio. Each person will have a radio in their ear and a transmitter. They're called whispers. Okay, I don't know why they're called whispers, but that's what they call them. And everybody will have one. And this will help us in many ways. For example, if we have a big group and we're doing a teaching, then you'll be able to hear. But also, as we're walking, this is going to be the key to keep us together. Okay, when we're walking down a street, for example, and we want to turn left, everybody will have your whisper. And then so the guide or myself will say, turn left at that place. And then I'll put somebody there. I will put somebody there at that place to kind of direct you. But that whisper will be the key. And then whoever's at the rear can then begin to say, to the person in the front, the guide or myself, hey, we're lagging behind, please hold up. So we will have ways of keeping us all together, even if we're walking in a busy street. See, we've got it all figured out. So it's all going to be good. Okay, go ahead here, and then I'll go over there. Yeah, he said, will regular cell phones work fine? Typically they will. Now you want to check with your carrier, because if you have fees for that, you're going to want to know that in advance. Some of them have free international calls. Some charge you a per minute charge. So you definitely want to check with your carrier on that. And it depends on the carrier whether you got good coverage or not coverage. So all I have to say is it just depends on your carrier. Okay, go over here. Okay, good. Her question was, are there different guides along the way? No, we'll have the same guide. Typically, we'll have the same guide for the whole time. And so the guide and myself will share a lot of the information giving. And then, of course, the devotionals will not be done by the guide. The devotional, the biblical teaching will be done either by Pastor Brian or myself. But the guide will give information and kind of helpful insights into things. It might kind of generically connect you to the Bible, but the devotion will be done by Pastor Brian and myself. But we'll have the same guide the whole time, except for, there might be exceptions. Like if we go to Bethlehem, that's in the Palestinian-controlled areas, we'll have to go. Everybody get off the Israeli bus and get on the Palestinian bus, and they give us a different guide. And then we do, what we're going to do in Bethlehem. We come back, we get off the Palestinian bus, we get back on the Jewish bus. We'll have a different guide. Now, when we go to the Jordan extension, we'll have a completely different guide for that, because we'll be in Jordan. Okay, so that's a good question. But I will be there through the whole thing. Right, and so I'll be the consistent element. And I've been there many times, and I do a lot of study about this, so I've got a lot of information. And so the guide will give information, so will I give information. And so it'll be a team thing. We'll share the microphone a lot, back and forth, back and forth. Okay, right here. Good question. What times do we typically start and end our day? So typically, we'll get on the bus by 9, maybe 8:30. We'll typically be back at the end of the day and it varies according to how we did that day, anywhere from 5 to 7. I try to be back by 6, so you got time to eat dinner and rest and do what you like. Don't hold me to it, but that's my best. Back there. What attire? Oh, good. What attire should we avoid wearing? Good question. So be respectful in your attire, of course. And you should bring something that's nice, but typically you can wear kind of typical touristy kind of stuff. That's fine. But have something nice to wear should we need to go into a particular holy site that we should dress up a little bit. You'll be told in advance before we do that. Just have something with you should you need it. There will be times when if you need a head covering, we'll tell you that. And so, you might want to bring a head covering should you need it. But you'll be told in advance. Okay, so her question is, are the future trips always going to be in the fall, or do we ever do summers or spring or whatever? We typically avoid summer because it's just really hot. It's just really difficult to withstand a talk when you're standing in 100 degrees. You're just wilting and you're not listening. So we really don't do summers. We have done spring, and we may do spring, like March. Of course, there's Jewish holidays in the spring too, so we have to work around those. And so a lot depends on my schedule. I go to Africa also, and so it just depends on my schedule too. So yes, sometimes we go in the spring, but never during the summer. Okay, which I know is inconvenient because your kids are, in school during the fall, winter, and spring. But we took a VIA on our last trip, and it worked out really well. Say again, what? Yeah, teachers, then that makes it hard for a teacher. Yeah, so I apologize if you're a teacher. But generally, the teachers will let kids off, and then they have to, of course, keep up their homework. But yeah. Okay. If there's a medical situation that comes up, how's that handled? That's a great question. You want to check with your medical insurance about that. Now, part of the travel insurance that you get includes extra medical coverage. So you want to take a look at that medical coverage, which can include evacuation and things like that. So that's a good question. I will remind me of that if I don't answer it through emails when I send you the travel insurance information. By the way, when I send you travel insurance information, you don't have to use the one I send you. You can get your own. Okay, there's plenty of travel insurance companies. You're welcome to get your own. You don't have to do the one I send you. Okay, back there. Yeah. Okay, his question was, if we're going to go through a tunnel that's going to be tight and the claustrophobic person may struggle with that, what does that person do? So either we will put you on the bus and he'll take you to the end site or the end of it, or we'll have somebody there who will walk you above ground and be with you. So typically, for example, in those cases, the guide will take the group that doesn't want to do the tunnel. The guide will take that group around, and then I will lead the group through the tunnel, because I've done this many times. So that's kind of typically how we would do it if you don't want to do the tunnel. The Western Wall tunnels, I think everybody should do. You won't freak out on that one. The two that I tell you in advance are Hezekiah's tunnel and the sewer tunnel. So I always tell you in advance, you can choose something else. At Hezekiah's tunnel, it's easy. There's a cafe there. And then we'll give you a rendezvous point at the Cajon Springs. How long are the tunnels? Good question. The sewer tunnel, I think you can get through it in 10 minutes, maybe 15. It depends on if there's a bottleneck, because only one person can get through at a time. And of course, the Hezekiah's tunnel, those that have done it, what do you think? 15 minutes, 20 minutes? Does that sound right? Yes, bring a headlamp or a flashlight, by the way, for those tunnels. Go ahead. Yeah, he said, how's the wheelchair access? Should a person not be able to walk as far? The wheelchair access is not real good. We have taken someone who needed kind of like a wheelchair sort of thing, and we had guys help, and we made it. So, I mean, it's possible, but not real good, because we're going to be, walking up a stair or down rocks and things like that. So it'd be harder for someone in a wheelchair. And there's no wheelchair access on the bus. I should have mentioned that too. So it would be hard. Let me go to an email question. It says, it would be great if we could worship with a messianic fellowship or fellow believers in the land. Is that possible? Maybe. Last time I was there, we actually were in the home of a Jewish rabbi, and we had dinner, and we didn't worship per se, but it was a great experience. So I don't know if that's flexible. We'll see. By the way, no doubt we'll be there on a Sabbath. And of course, they, as a culture, even though they're not predominantly a religious culture, they still have a lot of Sabbath keeping. And so there will be some inconveniences that you'll notice. Mostly you'll notice that in the food, because they will not serve you fresh cooked food on the Sabbath. But that you will endure fine, and you will find it to be a minor inconvenience. By the way, on a side note, as far as kosher eating, you will be eating kosher. So respect that. Don't ask for bacon or ham or anything like that. And there's no milk products at dinner time. Okay, so don't ask for cream for your coffee or anything. There's no milk products at dinner. And the reason for that is because of a scripture that says that you're not allowed to boil a goat, in his mother's milk. And so to avoid that possibility, they avoid all milk products at dinner time. However, at breakfast time, you can have milk products, but there's no meat. Okay, so be aware you'll be eating kosher. Okay, anything else? The what? Time difference. Oh, that's a good question. I don't remember. What is it? 10. 10 hours ahead of us or in front of us? Ahead of us. Yeah, 10 hours. Did I answer? I think somebody asked me a question. I hope I answered you fully. I don't remember if my mind tells me that. Okay, anybody else? Go ahead. For spending money for lunches, I would say $10, $12. If it's a restaurant, plan for a tip also. So in that range. And you can use Visa. Sometimes if you're in a nicer place, it might be $20 even. But you can have options, right? We're never going to say, okay, we're all having lunch here at this place and be all ready to pay for it. We won't do that to you. We'll give you options. Okay, great. Go ahead. Okay, she said, do we have to be aware of poisonous insects or snakes? No, you won't have any concern about that. Okay, over here. Good question. Are we going Bathsheba or anywhere? Bathsheba? I think you meant Beersheba. So no, I don't believe we're going there. I don't think it takes a long time to drive there, and there's not a lot to see there. Well, we've done it on a previous trip, and we even went to the wilderness Zine, which of course kind of brings us into the Exodus scenes, but it wasn't worth it because you just drive so far and see so little that you end up sacrificing a lot of other things you could have seen. So we're not, unfortunately, going to Beersheba. Good question. Oh, is there a deadline for deciding? Yes, but it's quite a ways away. And by the way, if you want, something happens and you want a refund, then the refund, there's a schedule for the refund. So in other words, if you ask for a refund close to, when you first gave it, then you get a lot of it back. But you get less and less of it back as you get closer. Does that make sense? Okay. All right, good questions. Recommended reading plan to prepare yourself. Well, of course, we're going to be all over the scriptures. So there's really, I can't think of anything other than maybe just doing some reading on some of the modern history of Israel. Might kind of help you to understand. A lot of people are not familiar with that so much as they are with the Bible, but I want you to really have that information about the recent history and how we got to the Palestinian problem and the conflicts in the Middle East and prophecy. So we're going to be all over the board, so I don't know of anything I could really give you that gives you that much information in advance. But that's a good question. Okay. Ballpark in the airfare, I don't. You mean as far as the separate price for what the reduction would be for the airfare? I don't know that. As soon as I know that from the travel agent, I will send that out to the group. That's a good question. And if I don't answer that, be sure that you reply to me. Everybody will be able to ask me questions and reply to me through emails. Do I have everybody's email on the clipboard? Did you all put your email down on the clipboard? Okay, good. And those that are live streaming, please send me your email, your names, and your cell phones. My email address is rich@calvaryhillsboro.org. That's for the live streamers. Okay, any other questions? Otherwise, we'll wrap it up. Rick? Yeah, we don't have the tour guide selected yet. Too far away. You like Pilar, I know, she was good. Okay, anybody else? Go ahead. Okay, so the question was, is there a maximum? Yes, the maximum is 54. And the reason why that's the maximum is because that's one bus full. Even at 54, the guide has to sit in the jump seat. So the last trip we took, we did cut it off. I'll just tell you that can happen. We did cut it off. And the reason why we had to cut it off is because I was the only pastor. Now, if we for some reason have 75 or 80 that want to go, then probably, and that's a lot of people to say no to. So I probably would say, okay, we're going to make that happen, and Brian's going to take a bus. Now, he's never been to Israel, but he's going to jump in the deep end, and he'll be responsible. Okay, so if we get that many, we will go ahead and do the separate bus, and Brian, he's going to be on. But typically, the last time they cut it off, because I did not have a second pastor, and so we cut it off at 54. And I think we'll be close to full. I do think we will be likely near to full. Just looking at the crowd here, I can estimate just by the crowd how many actually will sign up and how many won't. And I also have a group of people who've already emailed me. They're not here for various reasons. They've already emailed me and said that they're going. And so I have them. And then, of course, we have the live streamers that are obviously not in the room. And so there are others that are live streaming right now that are planning on going. So, don't worry. I will tell you when the numbers start getting close. For example, if we're down to 10 left, I will tell you that so that you can decide, okay, there's 10 left and we've been kind of back and forth. Yes, we're going, or maybe next time. Now remember, this is a land tour. The next one I do is the cruise. Okay, so if you want to wait for the cruise, you are welcome to do that. Okay, so I want to lay that out there also. But the next one is not a land tour. Okay, the ninth tour is the one after that one. So it'll be, okay, I've said it enough. Okay. How far out is the cruise? It should be about 2.5 years from today. Yeah, it depends on my schedule, Africa, et cetera, maybe 3 years. Okay, anybody else? Okay, you guys have been awesome. Thank you for your patience. I hope everybody's giving me your email address. As soon as I get more information, I will put everybody together and off we go. God bless you. Hope you do well. God bless.